The Anunnaki have a lifespan of 200,000 years, and Anu has been their leader for the last 50,000 years. Anu has two sons, Enlil and Enki. Enlil works with their scientists to figure out that they can save the planet if they spray microscopic gold particles into the atmosphere to reflect the sun's radiation coming through the non-existent ozone. The only problem is they don't have any gold. So they set out searching for planets who do and found Earth. They know Earth has life, but it's just a few primitive bipedal creatures who are less than half the size of the Anunnaki. So they figure if we have to, we can take them. So they send out a party of 300 Anunnaki and 600 Igigi headed to Earth with a mission of setting up a city and mining Earth's gold. The Igigi are actually a separate alien civilization that had been conquered by the Anunnaki many years earlier and made into their own personal slave force. So once they land on Earth in the area that we know today as Mesopotamia, the Anunnaki, under the rule of Anu's son, Enki, put the Igigi to work building a settlement called Eridu, giving them all of 7 days to do it. The Igigi are a little grumpy, but they get it done, and then move on to digging for that gold. And dig they did. For about 150,000 years, with ships arriving regularly to take the gold back to Nibiru. But it's not enough. They need more gold. Enki tells the Igigi, work harder. And what was terrible treatment before gets even worse in trying to get the Igigi to work harder. But the Igigi are done. Under their leader, Atrahasis, the Igigi proclaim, mine your own gold. They collapse the mines and attack the city. They lose and are quickly brought back under control, but the Igigi still refuse to go back to work. Enlil, who's like the top administrator guy, says they're treasonous, they all gotta go. But Enki, more of a science guy, says, slow down, we're not gonna kill them. I got a way better idea. Let's use the locals. They're not really smart enough right now, but if we give them a little of our DNA, I'm sure we can come up with something smart enough to work the mines, but not smart enough to ask questions. Takes a few tries to get it right, giving us a few mistakes along the way, like the Cyclops, but they managed to develop a race of hominid that we know today as Homo sapien, the first of which they name Adamu, which means first man in Sumerian. And if you haven't guessed already, how long ago did Homo sapiens enter the fossil record, according to mainstream archaeology? About 300,000 years ago, right about the time the Igigi call it quits. So, okay, problem solved. Now we have this custom-made local force to dig for us, and the mining continues. But it turns out that human nature isn't just for humans. I don't know if it's out of boredom or because after being here 150,000 years, he's starting to get the itch to settle down and start a family or what. Enki starts eyeing the human women and starts messing around. Big no-no. But he does it anyway, and to no one's surprise, has a son named Adapa. So Adapa, being part Anunnaki and part human, is a little smarter than the other humans. And his lineage starts asking questions. Why are we mining gold? Gold must be important. I want some of that. Beginning our preoccupation as a species with gold as a valued commodity. And Adapa's offspring are not as docile as their forefathers. They fight back. And either through violence or attrition, the new aggressive human 2.0 thrives, and the more docile human 1.0 dies out. But human 2.0 turns out to be a little too successful. They overpopulate the cities and start riots over the lack of food. Enlil, ever the administrator, tries to control the violence by thinning the population through plagues and famine. Enki intercedes on their behalf, and a deal is struck that humans would have to leave the city of Eridu, including its lush and beautiful garden named Eden, and fend for themselves in the real world. So they do, and spread themselves out all over the planet. Now, some humans retain their relationships with the Anunnaki, producing hybrid offspring that sometimes, to humans at least, are giants. Some of them are still known today, giants like Gilgamesh, Hercules and Samson, all pretty much good guys. On the flip side, relationships with the Igigi produce giants of the not-so-nice variety, like Goliath, who are a little more ill-tempered and tend to eat humans. But that is the state of affairs for a while, until we roll around to 12 to 13,000 years ago. The Anunnaki have all the gold they need, and Nibiru is on course to swing back around for an easy pickup of any Anunnakians left on Earth. So they all pretty much say adios and thanks for all the gold, leaving humanity to fend for itself. However, the problem is that Nibiru doesn't exactly follow the same exact path every time it swings in for a visit. It varies a bit, sometimes further away, sometimes closer. And this pass is going to be a close one. So close that the gravitational pull between the two will be so strong that it's pretty much going to wreck Earth as we know it. Floods, earthquakes, you name it. Can you say Younger Dryas event? Enlil pretty much says, so what? They serve their purpose, and we have what we need. What's the issue? But Enki couldn't let the humans go so easily. Remember, he's the one who took a human wife and had human children. He kind of has a soft spot for us. Up until this point, we've been doing okay for ourselves, but we're not exactly a shining example. We're violent, rude, and pretty much a menace. Enki proposes that one good man, Utnapishtim, his family, and a good representative sampling of all living animals be given at least a chance at survival. Utnapishtim builds an ark, loads everyone on it, and manages to ride out the gravitational fury that rages across the entire surface of the Earth and restart humanity from the 8 people aboard. Sound familiar? And just like the Nephilim story, giants repopulate in the Anunnaki version of events the same way, either through the genetics of the flood survivors or because of another visit from the Anunnaki. Because even though we managed to survive the flood and start over, all knowledge of past civilization is lost to time, and we are pretty much left to start from scratch. Except Nibiru makes another, not-so-catastrophic pass about 3,600 years ago. The Anunnaki use the opportunity to check in on us and make some tweaks to their creations, namely shortening our lifespans and decreasing our immunity from disease. But they also hung around for a while to reteach us some important skills before they left again, giving us back our knowledge of language, mathematics, and astronomy. Coincidentally enough, that last pass 3,600 years ago just happens to correspond to the rise of the Sumerian civilization. But whether you take the biblical approach or the Anunnaki approach, the final upshot is that we mere mortals now have giants living among us. Interesting that if you take the biblical approach for timing, it clocks out that the original visit by the Watchers was during the days of Jared, which puts the Nephilim on Earth from 3,500 to 3,000 BC, just slightly before the Sumerians started talking about the Anunnaki around 2,500 to 2,000 BC, which is also the same time frame that the Greeks were chattering about their Titans and Olympians. The Greeks don't throw their hat in the ring for having a true origin story.